There's a new Lord Solar in town, and on the one hand we've got a cool model, but on the other hand, who even is this guy? Before we get into it, I just want to tell you that this video is sponsored by the Magnet Baron. We'll hear more from them later on, but before we start talking about Lord Solar Leontus, who is legendary, mind you, legendary. I mean, I didn't know he was legendary until I clicked the thing, because I've never heard of him before, and that's kind of the start of the issues that I'm having when it comes to some of the decisions with characters. Just characters in general, okay? See, on the one hand, this is a fun model. It's a very silly model. It's definitely silly. I mean, it's a guy on a mostly cybernetic horse. But the problem that I have is that I don't care about this particular character because I've never heard of this person before. They're a complete non-entity to me. There's no, like, personal connection. There's no like, link there. There's no draw of nostalgia or of history or of, you know, someone that has been present for so long in the lore and is now getting some sort of really cool upgrade, or there's no return, there's no promotion, it's just, and here's a guy who's super important that you've never heard of before, and I don't know, I'm starting to really struggle with that in some situations when it comes to 40k. See, for my money, they could have brought back Macarius, for instance, or they could have promoted Yarick, two loved characters who have a deep history within the game, and instead we don't have anyone who's got a deep history within the game. We've got just a new shiny hero who's new and shiny and new, and if you Google their name, the only thing that comes up even relevant to them is this article, because they don't have any prior history within 40k as a whole. And that's where the struggle comes in for me, because this is Lord Commander Solar, Arcadian Leontus, and he sits upon a ridiculous cybernetically enhanced horse. And that's all fine, but I don't fully understand why he's here when there are other characters that could have been here instead, you know? And you'll notice at this point that none of the complaints that I've had so far are anything to do with the actual model, which, yes, is very silly. It is a horse with cybernetic legs. It looks like quite a bit of the neck and maybe part of the face is either replaced or armoured over. I kind of think maybe the back of the neck is also cybernetic as well. I don't know how much of the actual horse is left at this point. Looking at it, actually, I think it's mostly just a servitor with a horse's brain in it. I don't think it's necessarily actually much of a horse still going on. But if you're going to have a horse that carries around your extremely important commander of all the lads and lasses, then I guess you want it to be more robot than actual horse. You could stick them in a tank or something more sensible, but it's 40k, and sometimes you just got to let loose and put your commander on a robotic steed. Sometimes you've just got to do it, alright? Now, as for Leontus himself... Wait, no, Barry, stop it, don't... No!
This video is sponsored by the Magnet Baron. If you're watching this, there's a chance that you like a bit of Warhammer 40,000, and if you like a bit of Warhammer 40,000, that means that you most likely have built one or two 40k models in your life. The thing is, when it comes to them big expensive purchases, you don't want to be buying one model for every single loadout, and the Magnet Baron has got the perfect solution for exactly that problem. For example, this kit for the Imperial Knight, what allows you to change the head, the chest-mounted weapons, the carapace weapons, the arm weapons, even the waist and torso joints, plus some to stick them to a magnetic sheet for easy travel. And that's just one of the kits what they offer. Head over to themagnetbaron.com or follow the link in the description. Thanks very much for sponsoring the video.
Look, I'm sorry about that, but there's nothing I can do. If Barry wants to do an ad read, he's going to do an ad read. And he wants to talk about Magnet Baron, and so that's what he's going to do. And there's nothing I can do to stop him. He's his own man, he makes his own choices. Now, onto Leontus himself. I actually quite like the model. I think it's pretty decent, mostly because it's not massively overblown. He does look very fancy. He has got, like... You know, we've got the Imperial Aquila on the chest. The sword is relatively simple, but it does have a cool hilt on it, which I think makes it, I don't know, it almost emphasises how plain the rest of the blade is in a weird way. The helmet could be even more ostentatious and silly than it actually is, but it's not. We've got a laurel wreath, we've got a kind of sun halo deal going on, but it's not really all that excessive. Got a few skulls on the greaves, but again, they're not particularly like... They're not just plastered on there. In fact, his whole uniform is relatively plain for what it is. He does still look fancy. Like with the gloves, the boots, the greaves, the very nice cloak, it still kind of gives off an air of authority and an air of, like, upper class almost. But at the same time, it's not super busy. It's not like an eyesore. And given how busy some of the models have been getting over recent years, I'm kind of impressed with that. I mean, even as a whole, there is a fair bit going on. But at the same time, there's also not as much going on as you might assume that you'd see from a Lord Solar. I mean, when you look at the horse itself, right, the robot that is apparently a horse, so we do have a little bit of detail on the armour plating at the front. We have got some symbols on the flank armour as well, but outside of some rivets and some engraving, that is not particularly like highly decorated. It's not like every single armour panel is etched and carved. It's not like it's absolutely covered in iconography to the point where there isn't a flat bit of metal on it. It's actually fairly reasonably spaced out. It still looks functional. It doesn't look like it's getting in the way of anything. It doesn't look confusing. Your eye isn't drawn like too much all over the model. I think they still got a good focal point like here and there. Like, I think it's always tricky with like cavalry because the focal point is like, do you go for the horse? Do you go for the guide? Do you want the horse to stand out? Do you want the guide to stand out? Well, you kind of want both to stand out because otherwise one's going to look super plain next to the other. Looking at these two, my eye is drawn to the head and the chest of the horse because of that huge icon across the armour that's also its chest. I don't know how this thing works. But at the same time, there is a natural progression going up from that kind of really, really eye-catching design. You kind of find yourself following up to Leontus riding said horse, and it flows quite nicely. He's got a nice heroic pose as well. The standing on the fallen... Is that a knight head? Is it a titan head? A reaver? Is it a reaver head? It's a reaver head. He's standing on a reaver head. Cool detail, that. I like it. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is pretty solid. I just don't know why it's this dude. This dude I've never heard of. Yeah, I mean, looking at some of these close-ups, I actually think this is pretty cool. Also, absolutely ripe for some AOS conversions, let's be honest. I would 100% turn this into something for Cities of Sigmar. Well, absolutely, definitely. It's like one of the most fantasy sci-fi miniatures Games Workshop has ever made, and they've made quite a few at this point, haven't they? Oh, little details with the like kind of carving and decoration on the holster for the pistol there and for the scabbard for the sword. But again, it's like it's not massively overblown. Weirdly, I think the base is more busy than the actual model is. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, for this being what it is, which is an Imperial Guard commanding officer on a horse, which is remarkably silly, it's actually also very sensibly done, which shouldn't be a thing, it shouldn't be possible. This is a daft concept, but they've actually executed it in a very sensible way. I will say, looking at it from this angle, that foot that is just out in the middle of nowhere, that is a bizarre choice. That is a weird choice. Now, I assumed when we were looking at the main picture further up that it was just an angle thing and we couldn't see what that was resting on, but it's not resting on anything, which means this horse is... what? It's just balancing on two legs? Since when do horses do that? What is that about? Why is there nothing under that hoof? Like, that's a really odd choice. I don't understand why you would. I would be building something up under that back leg to fix that issue, because that is really bizarre. That is really bizarre. Why have they done that? Okay, so mostly sensible. There's still an issue. Still an issue. So he's kept at his physical peak by a healthy diet, regular exercise, and staggeringly expensive rejuvenate treatments. Leontus has spent over a century leading the Emperor's armies. Well, I guess we did have like a time skip, didn't we, in 40k? They did jump it forward. So, yeah, okay. So the pistol is called Soul's Righteous Gaze and his sword is called Conquest. Yeah, that sounds about right. And of course, because he's the new fancy lad, he's going to be on the cover of the new codex that will come with the army box that he won't be in, I don't think, which is... sure, fine. Bit weird, but there you go. Also, that's a cooler pose. I'm just throwing it out there. That is a cooler pose than the one we actually got. Now, I've seen that. I would prefer it if the model was posed like that. But, bit late now, innit? Anyway, there you go. Lord Commander Solar, Arcadian, Leontus. He's not Yarick. He's not Macarius, but He is kind of cool. What do you think of this new lad? Let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you like. I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.